Good morning. All right, where are we at? I think the airbrush is working today, so should be able to use that a little bit. Let's see. Let's see. I've drawn that guy before. Just making a decision here real quick. Just grab a pose and throw something on that. How's that sound? Thinking through it. How you doing? Let's see. Should decide, I guess, ahead of time, huh? Good morning. How are we doing? Hello, hello. About architecture film stuff I saved a while ago. Things I feel like I've drawn before. How are you all doing? I think I checked it before I started, so I feel like it's okay. Maybe we'll do a mixed ref thing. All right, I take a pose and then add it on there. Oh, look, there's a long comment from someone who's not real. All right. So let's grab my mug. We're ready to go. Ooh. looking at some Gerardo or Gerardo art yesterday. Let's move this over here a little bit. I'm going to go with that. And there's another bot. Love those bots. Alright. That'll work right there. How's that for a pose? I'll throw some of this stuff on him. Good morning. I'll throw this guy's outfit on there. I need a sub. Definitely could use some. I appreciate anyone popping in and doing that. I'm going to kind of mix this outfit over here on the left with this pose. it up. That'll be the plan for this morning. So we've got these things up here. I think that'll be the plan, I think, today. Good morning. Everybody popping in over on the Instagram side. How's Mister? I think Mister's doing okay. Got classes today, so get ready for those after this. Make sure I've got everything I need for my students. How are you guys doing out there? Let's see that and that. How do I feel about that? Some books I studied anatomy from. There's a whole lot of books I've learned a lot about anatomy from. Um, there's always the classic ones that I recommend. They're all for different reasons. I like Loomis, of course. Uh, Figure Drawing for All It's Worth. It's a classic book on structural figure drawing. There's another one on drawing heads and hands, and it's stuff from like 80 years ago. He was an active illustrator in the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Probably, I mean, I think he started in the 40s, so maybe not then. But I always recommend Loomis, Loomis, um, for sure. And then there's Bridgman, of course. There's a number of books that are out there collecting his notes, but he has a great way of kind of explaining the mechanics of the figure and the underlying structure. Um, so those are definitely two that I would for sure recommend as far as books. I have a lot of other ones that go kind of deeper into anatomy, but depending on where you're at, it may or may not matter. So I think there's kind of levels to understanding and using anatomy, and I think as a pattern, this came up the other day too, but as a pattern, I generally recommend that people um, focus on gesture and underlying anatomy you get with a stick figure to start off with, and using that to identify really important landmarks. Um, Before going too deep into anatomy, um, definitely should study anatomy and memorize parts. I saw a guy who runs. He's got like an online school. I have one too. If you're curious, it's more about perspective at the moment, but I do have a figure drawing course I want to put out on there. But eventually, once I get my head out of the space I'm in right now. But like there's a certain set of parts I would start with. The major bones, the major muscles, and their groups. Um, but yeah, I saw this YouTuber. He was saying, "Oh, you don't need to know anatomy. You just need to know what's on the surface." And I'm just like, I don't think that's true. I think you do need to know it. I think the more you can see what's there, the easier time you'll have identifying it, and make it easier for you to draw. And I don't think there's any one way of doing things, but and I do think it's important. But those are two really good ones to start with. They're easy to get, and they used to not be able to get the Loomis one that easily until maybe 10 years ago when they started reprinting them. All right, where's my little rulerette? There you are. So that's the list that I like. There's other books out there. I know, like a lot of my students, they like those Morpho books. I've looked at them a little bit. I'm not that impressed by them. But I know that they like them. Okay. Let's see if I've got my airbrush all sorted out here. Did test it. I put a bunch of water through it before I got started this morning, so I just threw a cap on the floor. I wish these things were kind of magnetic or something. Let's see, where'd you land? Right, let's try that again. But I did check it this time, so make sure it was nice and clear. I'll start off with some maybe brown at the bottom. Let's see how this goes. It's on. Yep. Get some water in there. There we go. It's working. See, it works. Let's clear that out. Let's put a little more here, maybe. Put another color in there. I'll go with this orange. Just a little bit of that. How do you feel about that? Yeah, I've looked. Yeah, for me, more if I've looked, I just don't. I mean, as far as I just don't like his drawings very much. I know a lot of people like him. I've seen students, with the books, and I've looked at them and be like, it falls in the category of fine for me. But I do understand why people like it. I'm going to try a little splattering on there if I can remember how to do it. Got a bunch of books downstairs, but all right. Now that I'm feeling overconfident, let's see if I can do some splattering on here. There we go. What else do I need to know, right? Yeah, but yeah, I tend to like the older stuff. Not sure I need to look it up. Alright, that's good enough for now. Alright, this is dry. Let's make sure it's dry. Yeah, airbrush worked, right? I figured out the part that was clogged after last one, so I was able to turn the other guy blue. Alright. Yeah. I think part of it too is, they're really inexpensive and they're easy to carry around. I think that's part of the attraction too for those books. They're very portable. Whereas like the Loomis book is really big. I'm trying to think what else. I've got a bunch of stuff downstairs in terms of anatomy books. I appreciate that. Over there on the kick. With that ye old airbrush. Well, there's two things. First off, I've always, drawn with ink. But I did definitely study some inking over the last year. One of the things that I did is, well, first off, there's a professional inker for comics. He's been around since the '90s. Richard Friend, and he's got a YouTube channel. He's got a lot of stuff on there on inking. I remember the other guy's name. I looked at it. He's got like a Proco course on comics. He's more of a penciler, but he does ink, like his own stuff. I'm gonna watch a bunch of his tutorials because the inking for comics and things is very different than I would do in my sketchbook. Which I recognize, there's more of a graphic style. And so I watched a bunch of their videos, kind of practice some of the line drawing things that they would do. as a way of trying to see how they worked and trying to replicate the kinds of things that they would make. And then so that's what I looked at initially. And then I'm a big believer in doing copy work. When I was in grad school, I copied extensively at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. We had a class, so I did I think 3 paintings during that class. And then um, and I did ones later on my own at that place and another one in New York. So one of the things that I did is I printed out panels and pages of artists whose inking I like. And I printed them out really light or in a blue line or red line or whatever. And I ink on top of them, trying to do what they did. And that was also really helpful. So I just grab people's work I really liked or admired or think there's something interesting about. Something think they have things in their work that I want to be able to do for myself, and with copies. So I still have all of them. They're tucked away in a folder, but I think it's one of, if not the fastest way to improve certain kinds of skills is just to copy other people. And something we do growing up. When we're children, we copy our parents and our friends and other older people we like or admire or whatever around us, and just an important way that we learn as humans. So that's what I did. I did spent a lot of time doing copies. Hopefully it'll be to good effect. Sometimes I overdo it a bit because I like texture and I like drawing lines and things like that. So I feel like I overdo it. I need to plan a little bit more ahead in terms of what's getting what a little bit more, who's getting the heavy stuff, who's not. But so I just spent time doing that. I have a bunch of those pages around here somewhere. You can find high res stuff out there of old pencils or inks or other things, and on different websites or on Pinterest you can find artists. Like I was looking at Gerardo Zaffino, Italian artist, and I really like his work. Like kind of loose and free it is in a lot of places. Still very designy, but so yeah, copy. That's a big deal. That helps with figure drawing. It helps with uh, understanding, composition. Helps understanding technique. Helps you understand um, aesthetics, how to make things look good. Um, then a lot of times just inking, with my tools here. Again, I've always inked, generally speaking, with pens and ballpoint pens and sketchbooks and things for doing figure drawings, but kind of recognize that the kind of inking you would do for publication is very different than the kind you would do for that situation. You can bring the both together, but So that's what I did. Yeah, copying stuff is always a good way to study. It's funny because you'll hear AI people saying that like, oh well, it's just learning like a person does, and like that's not how those machines, those clankers, it's not how they work. They don't learn like a person does, and B, they're not a person, so they don't have like rights to learn. The next kind of phase with inking is like having your own thing you're doing, right? So like this is like a little study project, so um, can help me practice some of the things I want for myself. Finish that back. Yeah, well, I mean that's how that's the whole trick, right? Is how the idea behind this composition is all about manipulating the eye, right? It's all about figuring out where the viewer should be looking, what they should be paying attention to, and then using that information to create your composition. Because if you just kind of randomly place stuff on the page, like you're just going to get randomized results, and that's just not very helpful. It doesn't get people excited about your work or your story or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. And that's a lot of it's doing in film or games or other things. Is a lot of it's all about getting the viewer's attention in the right spot. And a lot of times, if you're confused watching a movie or playing a game or other things, um, then that's often the fault of the person putting the composition together in a way that doesn't communicate very clearly. Yeah, so I'm working. This is one of my morning studies. What I'm doing is I'm taking the costume I drew the other day from reference, and I found a pose on Pinterest that I drew the pose, and now I'm putting that costume on the reference. Um, so that's what you're seeing me do here this morning. This is kind of a warm up thing. It's been about an hour on this kind of thing. So it's not crazy investment of time, but and then applying new tools is another thing I'm doing here, where I've got an airbrush last year, well, um, actually almost like a year and a half ago, and never got around to using it. So I pulled it out about a month or so ago, a couple months ago, learned how to the basics of it, and then um, had a bunch of family things that I had to deal with over December, January, work things, and gotten back to it. So I wanted to start using it to create tone or texture or things on the surface. The pen I'm using, this is a Type C calligraphy nib. So I like it because you can kind of go, fat lines this way and narrow lines that way. Yeah, I found this one because a lot of the inkers for comics, they use a Hunt 102, which I have right here, and it's really good. Don't it's very, does a lot of really great things. I'm going to use it here probably a little bit, but what I like about this one is this kind of ability to kind of draw long straight lines very easily, because you can kind of balance on it and draw curves that kind of have a nice change in it. I'm not the first one to ever use this. I found it by accident myself. Um, when I was kind of playing around with some of these other nibs that I picked up and I like I've got some G Pen manga nibs around here that I like to use. Very similar to the Hunt 102 in terms of the effect. But um, but yeah, I was digging through some old nibs I had probably bought when I was like a young student in college or in high school or something like that. You know, went down to the local art supply shop and picked them up. And I was digging through it, just trying out the different nibs that were in the little container, and I was like, oh, I like this one. Actually, has a very similar effect to something called the parallel pen, which I bought a couple of those. Those are a little stiffer than this. This has a lot more bounce, which I kind of like, maybe a little better. You're bad at art now. What happened? Someone cut your hands off? Um, yeah, but I like it quite a bit. It's really good for drawing like long straight lines. So I did most inking on this one with it. And you can kind of work very expressively. You just have to make sure you're changing the angle of your paper or yourself as you draw to get the right line, so you're not drawing a fat line where you have to draw a skinny line. But yeah, I like it. Would recommend. 5 stars. And I'm working on my own little comic project. Um, Working it was Bramble, but I think I'm going to go with Briar, but spell it like you would a planet. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been drawing for a very long time. I'm not like a young person anymore. No, not ancient either, but not exactly. Well, maybe I am ancient, depending on who you talk to. I got a brushes that I really like to use. I really like to use Sumi brushes. Yeah, I've got some Linsky Sable ones too, but hello, Bosch, how you doing? So, but I said I'm working. I'm working towards some stuff on that. So, trying to get back into the groove of that. I did a large kind of I call it a landscape slice, I guess would be a good name for it. And you can't do a 3D square though. Oh, I can't even do a sphere. Well, I wasn't going to talk about it today, but if you want to, I have a teaching site. So if you look at my art professor there, it's basically courses that I used to teach at a college in Florida called Ringling, which is a big art school. A really good art school, just very expensive. Um, I couldn't afford to go there, uh, but I did teach there for a few years, and I taught some art courses, and I put them together during COVID, so they're kind of online, and but anyway, there's whole courses there. It's how to draw in perspective, how to draw boxes, and how to use them. I've got a final course I need to jump back into. I'm hoping to, well, maybe this weekend or during the next week to kind of finish fleshing it out, and then get other stuff that I've made up on there in the near future too. But it's that link you see there on the bottom of the screen. So um, if you follow through on it, it'll definitely make a big difference for what you do. And what's nice about it, what I like to brag about it, is it is student tested. So this isn't like some vague idea of how things maybe should work. You know, it's things that I've put real students through many times, and it helped with that. I've thought about adding a Discord to it, so like there's different levels of that. I think that'll work. I just have to sit down and do that. I'm trying to get back to the comic project first, so that's kind of rolling, and then jump into that. Oh, that's right. Let's finish off his little thing here. So yeah, if you haven't been over to myartprofessor.com to check things out, there's some free stuff there. Put on an email list. I'm going to put together a new email thing that goes out to new email people, but haven't gotten to that. Gute Nacht. Wie geht's? Meine Papieren verlaufen? Josana. Roman. ACK. Cheekit. It is not free. Obviously, I'm paying for a lot of server space and video, server space and the software for the course stuff. Yeah, it's definitely not free. It's kind of a little business I'm trying to get going. I've actually had it there for a while. But I've had a lot of distractions over the years that kept me from that I allowed to keep me from promoting things like I should. My fault. So. Well, I know some phrases. Wie viel Uhr kommt der Zug ab? Well, yeah, you got to get better at things, right? If you want to, do the high level work, then you got to get those high level skills, right? So, but that's that's what's there. So, obviously you can take it or leave it, but. Cheaper than most sites out there, I think. Yeah, it's cheaper than Schoolism and among others. You're bleeding. I just know a few German phrases. I do speak other languages than English, but German is not one of them. The Meine Papieren verlaufen, that comes from the Born Identity. That's what Jason Bourne says to the German cops before he starts attacking them. And it's very rude because they're just like, "Hey, why are you sleeping on the bench out here? It's cold, and you probably should go inside." And you know, who are you? What are you doing here? And he just attacks them. Not very kind. At least he doesn't like break any bones or anything. He just knocks them around a little bit. But no Korean. Only know one word in Korean. Uh, Anyang. I speak Russian, Lithuanian, and some mediocre, really mediocre now, Cantonese. But do what I can with what I have. So listening to some Russian music. On Young, not on Young. I see. And Young. Uh, yeah, I got that from a TV show where, if you know the show Arrested Development, the mother of the family adopts a North Korean child as a way of showing her children that she's a good person, which she is not. But he doesn't speak any English when he's being adopted by them at all. And so when they're meeting him for the first time, he's just saying hello. But they think he's saying his name. And so they all call him Anyang for the rest of the show. So it's kind of a joke from a TV show. But that's all I know for Korean. I had a Korean person I worked with when I was living in Hong Kong. And she'd get frustrated all the time because taxi drivers thought she spoke Chinese because she's. Um, oh, yeah? I know the K-pop Demon Hunters. That's really popular. I think my nieces watch that like 20 times a day. Yeah, that was quite the phenomenon. Of course, people like these Korean TV shows, right? Like, what's it called? Squid something. Though people didn't like the second season. We should have just stopped at the first because they told a complete story there. But nobody listens to me. TV executives and Netflix. Um, I know there's been some other shows that are popular too that I just haven't seen, like Train to Busan, which has a zombie, I guess, show. Can I see your cake picture? Probably not from here. Um, well, I've got my thing set up. I have OBS over on my old MacBook on my desk, so that's where I'm seeing the chat. Um, but yeah, I'm listening to Russian music right now, actually. Sirotkin. Actually, pretty chill stuff compared to what I'm drawing. I see. Well, I can't really see it from here. It's just really small on my screen. And it's pretty far away from where I'm sitting. I can read the text, but pictures are really small. I've been using today. I've been using this Coat Noir. It's a little wetter maybe than I would like. Maybe I should leave it open for a day or so just to let it evaporate a little bit. And then I'm using Deleter White #2 for the white ink. I've been using this Kohinoor stuff just because um, I have a bunch of rapidograph pens, and it's a it's non-clogging ink, and therefore it's less likely to get clogged up in the rapidograph wells. So um, yeah, so that's the inking I'm using. I also like the super black stuff. Um, I was looking at the what it says on the label, so I might switch to it. Maybe give it a try. Um, it says it's low clogging, so maybe it's worth a try in the rapidographs. I've got a cleaning kit for the rapidographs now, so I don't have to worry about clogging as much. Um, that's what I've been using. Oof. Hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Dónde está el baño? But Yeah, so that's why I try to use the same ink across everything. So that's why I've been using it here. You can mix a lot of I notice a lot of comic book inkers. They just mix whatever together. You know, microns and brush inks for their brushes are different than inks for other things they're doing. And I don't know if it's just like my background with painting, but I always feel like it's all got to be like absolutely the same as much as possible. That's just something inside of me. Whether that matters or not, I don't really know. But well, I speak Sesame Street Spanish, so whatever they were showing on Sesame Street is what I remember. And maybe Taco Bell commercials back in the day. Yo quiero Taco Bell. Right? So Squid Games. That was the name of the show. Squid Games. That's the one I was thinking of. So, but yeah, that's what we got going on. As much as I can, especially first thing in the morning. I've done it more often than that too. I was kind of on pause since October. I had a bunch of things going on, and I just needed the headspace to deal with that stuff. Now that that's all been taken care of, I don't have to worry about it anymore. Get back to my own stuff. So Company back more often. I've got classes today in the afternoon and a little bit into the evening, where I'm teaching at my university. Sci-fi, fantasy, illustration, and business class. So in the opposite order. How you write annoy Anyang is that? Is this a word for how to write that in Korean? На корейском языке. So let's see. Let's get today's date on here. Plan with this is I'm going to fill this page up, every corner of it. So I like to fill up with some big drawings first, and then some other stuff later on. Kind of fill in the gaps. Today's the 15th, right? This is pin mix ref. So Pinterest mix reference here. So yeah, it's been about a little over an hour, so that's pretty good for today. So here, put my toys away. Clean up, right? That's what we always do at the end of Mr. Rogers' TV show. Is put everything away where it belongs, so it's easier to find later on. Definitely been in that situation where made things hard to find for myself, right, Bosch? So anyway, thank you to everybody that came in. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you all later.